Today I'm going to show you how to build this power bank. This is a 40 amp hour power box with 6 outlets and an energy meter. And I built this so that I can run 2 telescopes at the same time all night long. And I've been wanting to do this project for a long time, and I finally got her finished. So we got about another half an hour before it gets dark, and I'm getting set up here outside. So this will run 2 telescopes all night long. And you can charge it at the same time you're running it. Now I've got my display in there. I'll show you what our net power is and the accumulated amp hours. And then I even have a place to put some things. So anyway, I'm really happy with it. Now I built this from the sides first, and then you put your front and back and top on later. So some of these dimensions, the front and back and the top, you might have to adjust a little bit. But basically you're going to need 3 8x8s, one for the bottom and 2 for the sides. And the front and the back are approximately 9.5 by 8, and the top is approximately 9.5 by 9.5. Now these dimensions are for my build, which is the 2 20 amp hour batteries. If you want to do 1 or 3 or 4 or whatever the case may be, it's totally up to you. But I left a little bit of room on the inside for future upgrades. So the first step is to square out all your boards and get them cut to length. And I was able to do them from one piece of fir, and this was an old shelf. And so all the boards are going to be the same and they all match. And so we get that step done, and then we move on to the assembly. Now here you can see I left some room on all sides because I want to add a battery warmer, and I want to be able to put it on the inside of the box. Now to make sure that the batteries don't shift around, I put these little stops. They're just little thin blocks, and I just put a little glue on and some pin nails. And the pin nails will keep it firm while the glue sets up. Now I need to cut a hole for the screen and one for all the power terminals. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the first thing you do is glue up the center first, which is the bottom and the 2 sides. And that way you can put one board on the front without seeing any seam at all, and I think that looks pretty. Then after that set up a little bit, then I started to do the front and the back, and just put some glue on, and then I'll clamp these together. And I'm going to put some pin nails in again to hold them so that I can get them in the clamps without doing a lot of shifting. Alright, it's been a while. I had to take it inside because it's so cold. I couldn't get the glue to cure, so Now the initial sand is fairly coarse. I think I used about 100 grit, and I want to get all of the glue off and then sand out all the joints so they're nice and flush. Now I need to be able to remove the top. I've got a cable in there that I need to get to, a USB cable, so I can reprogram the Arduino. And so I'm going to use 4 screws, and I'm going to countersink them and drill them all in one with this bit, and so that they're nice and neat and flush with the top. Now I put those screws in to hold this in place so that I could sand this top so that it's a perfect fit. And I can't have that top wobbling around. It has to be in there tight. And now I'm just going to hand sand all the edges and make them nice and smooth. And then I'm going to use some finer sandpaper to get this ready to apply the finish. Now when everything's nice and smooth, you have to clean off all the dust. I used an air compressor, but you can also use a vacuum, or you could use a rag soaked in a little bit of alcohol and get that off. And then I'm going to apply some shellac, which will seal the wood and get it ready for the top protective layer. It also adds a nice pretty color to it. Now for the electronics, I did 2 previous videos showing how I made this Arduino energy meter. And so if you want to see how that is done, I'll put links for both of these videos in the description below. Well, it's getting late in the day, and so what I want to do is I want to get this so that I can use it, because I only have about another hour before twilight. Now, I couldn't find any teeny tiny screws, so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to tape these on with painter's tape, and then I'll come back and put the screws in. But I just don't have it, and I need to get this going. So the first thing I need to do is run all of my power supplies through the window. I think this is a situation where I could use a hand. I don't know if I have enough fingers to make this work. Now, I left some extra room here for all of my cables, and I'll come back in and I will put some screws in and get that display down. But I have enough room here, so I'll go ahead and wire up the batteries. Okay, so I got my negatives tied together, and then this one is positive, but I didn't have another wire. It's red. I got a piece of trim here. And then I need to, you see we got all those in there. We got our two positives tied together and our negatives tied together. I was running out of time and the shellac was not quite set up when I was doing these final steps, but I was trying to get out in the field and get some more images. But that's okay, you can just retouch anything like that, and then we'll sand that out, and you'll never see it when we put the final coat on. Now, in between coats, you need to sand this down, and this is a 320, and then you'll get an appearance of like white, kind of an appearance. And that's taking off the highs. One way or another, you're going to have to protect it because the dew will affect the finish. So I'm going to use a spar varnish. You best use a bigger brush, but this is literally the only one that I could find. I need to let this dry thoroughly before I apply the next layer. But this is about finished.